One of the friends picked up the gun, didn't check if it was empty or not, and just playing with it. Nothing's happening, and then he points it to one of the brothers and then shoots him. He dies immediately, the friend goes to jail, and now that twin brother has to now live life without having a brother. Family always grew up in New Orleans, and it's a dangerous space to live in. I've always claimed to be an only child, but growing up, I always had half brothers. So my biological father, he had me, and then he also had twin sons. We always hung out, had a good time, and that was growing up. So 2005 range, right? One of the sons passes away. He gets shot by a gun that was laying on the floor, but it was like a loose gun, and at that time, they might have been 9 years old. And one of their friends picked up the gun, didn't check if it was empty or not, and just playing with it. And then he points it to one of the brothers and then shoots him. He dies immediately. The twin brother is now an only child in his own right. So he's growing up doing his own thing. He gets caught up with the wrong people, and in 2016, he dies right before his birthday. He also got shot and killed. So I was like, very graphic, very, very, very real. That's life sometimes. And so I now live my life in a way where I want to continue to do better, just have so much positivity exuding from my being that it covers the losses of the people that couldn't make it to where I made it. Because I always say rock bottom is a solid place to build from. It's a very sturdy foundation, and you gotta just pick which rock bottom feels the sturdiest and start going up from there.
Welcome everyone to the Beyond the Cover podcast. My intent with creating this podcast was to provide a platform where men can speak openly about their journeys with mental health without fear of judgment while doing so. While I, the host, or you, the listener, may not agree with everything or anything that a certain guest says for that matter, my focus is not to decipher what is right or wrong. Rather, it's to gain a better understanding of why somebody thinks and acts the way that they do. And with this understanding, we will begin to make better sense of our own lives and the world around us. So join me as we open the books into these men's journeys and dissect the pages within. Demar Jackson, welcome to
Yes, sir.
Beyond the Cover.
Hey, round of applause. We made it.
Man, I'm happy to have you here because actually, and I wasn't even thinking about bringing this up, but you've been a very patient individual and a really, really just cool person that I really respect. Because when I first came out here to Scottsdale, I remember you reached out to me early on, and I think I'd just come off The Bachelor, and you'd said like, "Hey, man," so something along the lines of, "Saw you came out to Scottsdale. Like we've been on a similar show. Like, would love to, catch up at some point, or just, and hang out."
Yeah.
And I had brought this up to you. I think it was like half a year later, 8 months later, when I finally like reached out.
Yeah.
That I was like, "Hey, dude, sorry for not responding earlier. I had such a bad taste in my mouth."
I remember that.
The whole reality TV experience that like I pushed away everything.
Yeah.
I thought that like, I was like the experience I wasn't happy with. And so I grouped in all the people that were in the Bachelor Nation. And I was like,
tough.
Forget all of you.
You got to cipher through that.
You all suck to me.
Yeah.
But then I realized that I'm like, no, it's not the people. It's the way that I perceived my experience that ultimately caused so much anger and frustration.
Yeah.
And so I came back around. And so I just wanted to bring that up. You're very gracious when I reached out, and I was like, "Hey man, love to hang out sometime." You're like, "Oh, absolutely." And I mentioned to you in person, you're like, "Bro, don't worry about it."
Yeah.
You're like that. You're like, "I get it." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. You probably do. You've been on this." So you probably see how this
man, because
goes.
coming fresh off of anything in front of that many cameras and that many interviews and having the mic'd up moments and all these things for X amount of months, and you're going right into reality, you just want to break from everything. If you can go to sleep for 3 months, you would, right? You're like, I'm just exhausted. So I was like, "Oh yeah, let you have your space. Do your thing. I'm around if you need me. I'm a good resource and support system to have in your corner. So I just let me know when you're ready."
Well, it's interesting you say that about just feeling almost exhausted post-production. So did that happen to you after you'd come off? I mean, because my understanding, so you were on season 16 of The Bachelorette. So that was the infamous
peak
like
COVID, man. Two bachelorettes.
Two bachelorettes. So like nobody still to this day knows what happened with Claire.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can say a whole lot, but are you aware?
I'll touch on some things.
Yeah. Are you aware of like what happened to that? Because what I've heard is that I've heard a couple things. One, she went on the show and right away was just like, Dale's incredible, game over.
I wish you were there to see it. If I could have seen everyone's face the moment that you see Dale, cool, and then you see Claire look at Dale, you're like, oh, it's over. Like, why are we here?
So was that apparent?
Oh, it was instant.
Okay.
But in like a good way. Like, we were happy, well, at least speaking for myself, I was happy seeing that, oh, she knows what she wants, but I'm kind of like already going into the process defeated. Like, this is not going to be as easy as I thought it could have maybe be. And on top of that, it's going to be uphill battle. And then I start hearing that she has seen his social media. Because if you recall, we were the cast that we all went out to say LA right before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. Flew us back for 4 months, and then in July, flew us out there again. So at this point in time, it's already announced who's going to be on the show. Yeah. Claire can see everyone's Instagram, and all that stuff was starting to go on. So when she was making, statements like, "Oh yeah, I already was like privy to what Dale looked like, who he was," and I feel like you're kind of wrapped up in say those 4 or 5 months, not seeing anybody, talking to anybody. And you're like, but there's this guy coming on the show named Dale, and I see his story one day. He's running, he's working out, he's having positive affirmations. I want to meet this guy. Then you get mentally fixated on the thought that I can see myself with this person. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, bang, you meet him in person. Oh, it's over. Game over.
So I wasn't aware that happened. I wasn't aware that she basically had a 4-month or 5-month head start as far as like getting to look and see the people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
initially she didn't. Yeah, initially she did not. And then we all went back home for those months and then came back. Yeah. And then by then they recasted maybe a third of us or even half of us or so. Okay. But a lot of us, was part of the original cast, like myself, like Ivan, like Noah, so on and so forth. Yeah. Some of us part of the original cast. But then, Dale was also part of that original cast. So if she had that original cast member in mind already, the time she sees him, it's almost like it's not going to be fair. But that's the name of the game. So I was happy for them at the time. Yeah. But, things worked out in mysterious ways.
Yeah, absolutely they do. And so did you know like night one? I mean, was it that apparent?
Ooh. So you can speak to this too. So
I will. Yeah. I have my thoughts on it. So I was just curious. As far
Night one is tough because first of all, sleep is not a thing. You're gonna not even think about. If you're thinking about sleeping, you're not thinking about being on the show. Yeah. So you're going on it. You're already going to be tired because the night started around like say 11 p.m., 12 a.m. kind of thing.
Oh, you started late.
Like
I think we got it like 8 p.m.
That's when all the guys finally arrived. Like they're leading up to that moment. So the night didn't start until that time frame. Yeah, now when you're thinking about the night starting that late, you're like, wow, okay, I'm tired. Yeah. I'm exhausted. Yeah. But I'm here for Claire. I'm here for the show. Yeah. I'm here to figure my own journey out. And then all of a sudden, one thing leads to another, and you see cameras following Dale's every move, and you see small things. Things can't start until Dale enters the room. Like all jokes aside, like it was like, okay, I see he's the focal point today. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. However, not everybody got a chance to like talk and spend time with Claire on the first day. Yeah. So that was okay. We understood that. That was part of the game. Yeah. But it was apparent on night one, in my opinion, that I was like, there's some things going that aren't adding up to me. It's not fair. Not everybody's having the same amount of time. Yeah. Some people are getting more one-on-one time than others, and some people aren't getting time at all. So it was like a very topsy-turvy kind of situation. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I and that's interesting because, for one, I was on Michelle's season. She ends up choosing Nate. Nate was actually in the limo with me. So we were part of I think we were the first limo, and he was the first one to step out. Yeah. So he steps out. Oh, yeah. And I'm first off, I'm like, bro, it's the game. He was the first guy I actually saw coming from my hotel room.
Really?
So I see this 6'8", light-skinned, beautiful looking man. And I'm
that's my competition.
I'm like, bro, are you serious? Mm-hmm. It was funny because I go, that's the first guy I saw. I'm thinking like, bro, they brought a whole, like, if this is what I'm up against,
they brought a basketball team.
It's game over. Like I'm out. I'm out night one for sure because I happen to see the tallest guy on the entire
Everyone's
show.
Thought. Yeah. Like, because I feel like guys don't get enough, I guess, slack on this, or maybe they do, but I would say they don't, like the public doesn't think and view guys to compare themselves to other guys as much as they do for the lady side. So when it's a bachelor, like, oh, she's jealous. She's self-conscious. She's comparing herself. Us guys, we're doing the same exact thing. Yeah. The first guy I saw was Dale. Mind you, I didn't have a limo entrance, but when I got into like the house, it was Dale there and a couple other guys. I think it might have been Easy or whoever might have been there. And I was like, yep, I might be one of those night one kind of guys. Having a good time mentally. Oh yeah, I'm leaving tonight. There's no way she keeps me.
Yeah. Well, how were the nerves when you first stepped on camera?
The actual worst.
Yeah.
I probably couldn't tell you how nervous I was, but I do know that's the nervous I've ever been in my life. And to compare things, I once taught a spin class at Petco Park with Zed. I was not as nerve-wracked as I was entering in for the first time in front of cameras, looking at Claire, and her dress is shiny, the lights are on her, producers are all around. All right, go, your turn. And I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm go. Time to go. Yeah. So I walk up, do my thing. Didn't have a limo. I had the solo entrance.
Yeah.
Walked up and I was nervous, forgot my name, forgot where I was from, forgot my occupation, forgot anything of value. Yeah. So I said, hey, nice to meet you. Said my little funny line that I made up in my head to kind of get her to laugh. Yeah. Once she laughed, I was like, check mark. And where's the house? If anybody watches this back, like the season 16, episode 1, I hardly have an entrance because I butchered the beginning, the end, butchered all of it. You know, who is this guy? But anyway, so she laughed. She said, what's your name? I said, Demar. Oh, where are you from? Oh, Scottsdale. That's how it went. As I'm walking up the stairs, I was like, oh, let me just get inside. I need to get out the cameras because this is horrible. Yeah. Nervous. Yeah. Nervous.
Oh, man. I mean, you captured it so well. I remember when I stepped out and as I started walking, I was like, all right, am I swinging my arms too fast? I was like, am I taking too big of strides? I started thinking about how big my strides were, if my arms were swaying too fast or too big. And so I was like, but wait, then I'm like, if I slow down my arms and my feet, like I'm going to even look more weird. So like all these things start rushing up. And I don't think I couldn't remember if I said my name. Same thing happened to me. And it's funny because I had my main line. First off, I got my ruler smacked, or I got my ass smacked with a ruler. That was like my entrance. I was like,
okay. I'm trying to think back. I'm like, I remember seeing that.
I was like, I'm already gonna get my ass slapped with a ruler. Like my boys are already gonna give me trouble for this.
Yeah.
All I could think about was like, that's the main focus. So like I thought, I'm like, I can't mess that up. So everything before and after, I like went by the wayside, and I got that knocked out, and then I was like, okay, all right. I'm like, same thing as you. I was like walking inside. I was like, that's all. I got my main part.
Yeah.
Like, this is enough. Let me just walk inside and decompress and try to catch my breath and be like, what just happened?
Right? Like everything's a blur. It's the longest blur, but it's a big blur. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, Claire has done this before. She's been on different seasons. She's done X, Y, and Z. She's a professional. She's a seasoned vet. She knows what she's doing. Me, I'm a rookie. I'm like, what? Oh, it's the lights. Oh, it's the cameras. It's actually, okay, Claire, hi. It was very transactional. Like we're like, hey, this is me. This is who I'm about. I'm gonna go. Like, sorry to waste your time. That's how I felt like. Sorry.
So of course, I mean, it's a shock for most people. I would say if I asked anybody how it was walking out the limo, I think most of the guys that I'd asked that were there with me on The Bachelorette were like, dude, I don't remember what I said. So that's a pretty common theme. Were you able to settle in quickly to your true self? Actually, in fact, even though you were nervous, did you still feel like in that moment you were able to give 100% like Demar, like that, like I gave my full in that moment? Or did you feel that you were basically holding back a little bit of like, well, I don't want to come in because like fully me, because I got to like wait and see how this plays out. Like cameras are on, like I'm going to play it safe. Did you play it safe?
Great question. I'm going to say yes. I think inherently I played it safe just because I didn't know what to expect. But then once the sun starts rising and the night's about to end, I was like, I did not do anything to let her know who I even am. I might have wasted this whole entire journey on just one night of me trying to play it safe. So, and even my producers were saying the same thing. They're like, come on, man, you got to get out there, got to go. And I'm like, I'm trying. Like, it's like one of those kids that are trying to play a sport for the first time. They're like, I'm trying. I just don't know how to start. And then once I started after that first day, once I got the roles the first time, I'm like, okay, this is what it's about. These are the people, the guys in the house that I can, hang out with, laugh, kind of let my guard down with. These are the ones I kind of want to look out for. Then Claire, she's been nothing but dope, solid. Let me now talk to her like a normal human being, because that's what we're all here to do, and not think that she's way up here when really like we can talk as peers, So that was nice.
So obviously we hear this all the time that people are there for the wrong reasons. And that some people I'm pining for the role of the next Bachelor.
Good for them.
And I saw that on my season as well. I'm curious, in your experience, or do you think it pays to be dramatic? Do you think that, and you don't need to name names, but did you notice anybody that was purposely playing the part of a villain or being dramatic and interjecting themselves into all the drama? And does it work?
Yeah. So, I mean, you know how they say, sex sells, drama sells, anything that's worth a click or view or whatever, that's going to sell.
Yeah.
People are going to do that. For me, I think I resulted to the role of like the comedic relief kind of person, just hanging out like a guy's guy, hang out with Claire, or at that point in time could have even been Tasha, and trying to get to know them when I can and try to be a genuine person. However, the people that off the top of my head, there were people that was there for sure that was like, trying to get in front of the camera a little bit more, because not saying they knew what was going to come later down the line with getting more TV time or any of that. I'm not gonna say that, but they knew they wanted to stir something up. Say, this is a show and I'm gonna make it be a show. This is this and I'll make it be about me, my moment. So not to name names, but there were maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 guys over the course of our time there that I'm like, what are we doing, guys? Come on, like, you guys would never do this. But at the same time, I'm like, if you guys don't do this, no one's gonna watch. So I almost respected the fact that they were going the extra mile to get their name out there and to like have Claire or Tasha say their name, or to pull off from like a 2-on-1 date or whatever the case may be, because that could happen. So I'm like, I get it. If you want more TV time, do what you just did and keep doing that. People are going to hate you, but some people are going to respect that.
And absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, the show has to sell an entertaining TV show. And while at first I was frustrated with the drama that ensued on my season and how I was tied into it, I wasn't happy with it. It's funny, and like now that I look back at it, and I have self-love and self-confidence like I've never had before. And so now I go, you know what? I love that my season was chaotic. and yeah, I mean, I hurt people's feelings, and I wish I wouldn't have. So don't get it twisted. I'm glad that it was chaotic, but I was like, you know what? In a way, like, we put together, the whole cast and I put together a really entertaining TV
it's a show. There's no script.
And
we're just in it.
I will never be the most boring bachelor ever. Like, and so I was like, for me, my ego, it's like, I don't have to ever worry about that. You can never say that to me, which was an insecurity of mine. Was I always felt like I wasn't, entertaining enough as a person. And so every time I interacted with people, I'm like, oh, they're losing interest as they talk to me. And so I never had that confidence. And so it's, I now see the drama as a necessity for reality television. And I also see it, I welcome it, and so I'm curious, if you were to find your way back, let's just say back on reality television. I know that you're in a happy relationship.
I am. Yes.
So you wouldn't be going back on a dating show. But let's say you went back on reality television.
I like that. We'll see.
Would you bring a little bit more chaos? Would you add it in there, or would you stay the same as what you were before?
I would definitely stay the same. I would do more of the things that made me memorable. I would say that. So I'm memorable for the whole mocha latte thing. There was that part. So I'm memorable for certain random parts. I'll do more fun stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you want to give us a little bit of I know you mentioned to me before we hopped on air here, you said you're like, it didn't sound too great whenever I was practicing, it was great. And then when I went live, it wasn't that awesome. So do you want to redeem yourself right now with a couple lines?
Man, my voice is so shot from teaching. That's why I'm drinking this tea. So just know, normally I'm like, sure, let's do it. But I know I would butcher it even more. Because it was horrible on TV. Behind closed doors, I was singing the lights out. I was like, pow, 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 pow. But the moment that camera rolls on, I butchered all of it. So right now, it'll be more of that butchering moment. I have no voice right now.
You did mention that beforehand, so you're off the hook. Because I wasn't going to see if you were going to. I knew you'd. I'm like, he would rise to the occasion just because, like, again, you're like, what more do I have to worry about? Like, I put myself out there. So,
I did it.
But you did get your hot tea when you came.
Man. So. Yeah, teaching what, 9 classes, 10 classes a week, spin classes. Voice is shot. Voice is shot.
I can imagine. I mean, I've seen on social media. I mean, you bring the enthusiasm and the excitement, and you have that high energy, and that's also too, again, as I was looking into a little bit to like your time on TV and reading articles, and what I saw was that was what people said, like Demar DJ was bringing the energy, like that's what he was known for, but he tended to stay out of the drama, like he took a step back, and so I did the same thing. On my experience on The Bachelorette and then The Bachelor, I kind of leaned into stuff a little bit more. And the reason I asked the question was because if I were to go back on TV, it's like, I'd play into it a little bit more. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm like, it's still authentically me, but like, I'm a part of a TV show and I want this to be fun and entertaining and like hook people, right? Because there's a sense of pride that I'm like attached to that show. And it's like, you don't want to be like, I mean, I personally am like, hey, like I take pride in it. Like it's me, but I don't want people to be like, that was the worst show ever in history. Like I want them to be like, wow, that was incredible. You know, it's kind of like, there's like a play of sorts, right? There's, it's real. People always ask me, I'm like, it's real.
It is.
But like, we can all, maybe upregulate ourselves a little bit to make it a little bit more spicy, right?
Yeah, because you can watch almost any show, reality or not. Yeah. And if they were doing what they always do in front of their actual friends and sitting there talking, no one's gonna want to watch that.
It's like
shit. Watch that anything. They're not gonna watch it.
Yeah.
But they'll watch it the moment you start cussing, the moment you start doing anything, the moment you start doing a backflip, the moment you start making people laugh, people gravitate towards positive energy. So, or towards any kind of energy for that matter.
Yeah.
So if you can bring anything out there, people are going to want to love to see it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Yeah, I sometimes wish they would have showed a little bit more. Like I freestyle rapped on the Bachelorette.
Did you really?
They didn't show that. I asked them. I was like, guys, can we leak this?
They actually left a lot of fun stuff out. I feel like on every season.
Yeah.
I'm sure on your season, our season, they left a lot. They put like maybe towards the back end of an episode.
Yeah.
Like when the credits are rolling, they might have a funny part of some things. I
think that. Yeah. Did they do that on your season where they had the funny credits on the back end?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Funny credits. Yeah.
I just thought they could have added a couple more in there. I was like, guys, come on! Like
every day was something funny.
I was like, I killed that freestyle.
Now, can you give me a sample from that freestyle if you remember anything of it?
No, I don't even remember what I said. Also, most of my freestyles were explicit because I was rapping off of like the music that I've heard, not anything that I actually do in my life. I was talking about gang banging and violence and shooting stuff, and I'm like, I did that when I freestyle rapped like in college and then briefly in the pros, and so people are like, bro, this white dude rapping about violence
because you went to Missouri, right?
Yeah,
Missouri, right?
Rapping. They just liked it. They're like, who's this white boy acting like he's thug and he's not?
I'm not acting. This is for real.
No, I'm like, y'all don't want to know what I had to do in the streets of Eureka. I had the street lights on at 8 p.m. Like area. So I didn't live any of that, but it was fun. I got to have fun with it, and it was enjoyable. But
I get that.
No, man, it was fun to have that. But I wish they'd have showed it, but they didn't. So be it.
No, they leave out a lot of stuff that I feel like people would love to see because yes, people like the drama, people like the love, they like the romantic side. But if you show people the funny side of it, in my opinion, ratings would even go higher because, for example, Love Island, because I actually got into Love Island finally after X amount of seasons. This Love Island season 6, the one that just aired for US, I heard that one was one of the biggest ones because the people on it they seemed more real. They seemed more like raw in themselves. And you seen like the character development and you seen people go from character development this way or that way, like high or low, whatever it was. And you were rooting for couples. You were rooting for certain people. When somebody who started crying, they were like, oh, why is she crying? She cries all the time. And then she can make a joke of herself crying or of himself crying. So it's like these things are missed out on our show because you can only fit so much in that time span as well. I get it.
Well, and I also think too, like I heard there was a girl in Love Island that people were like, oh, she's chaotic, but she was just letting herself go. Her emotions were just flying out there. People were like, that's how I'd react. Like everybody loves a messy queen or whatever they said about her. It's like she was just like, this is me. And maybe she's pumping up a little bit, but she wasn't concerned about her image. She just let it go. And people like gravitated towards that. They're like, this is refreshing because like she's just being her. Letting it fly and crying and being chaotic. And so it ended up like really, being beneficial to her. And that's why, I've seen now as I've went on a few shows that it's like, hey, sometimes people are trying too hard to like fit this mold and you play it safe and you're going to be forgettable. Right. But if you just like let it go and just like let it be a fun experience and you're just like, hey, I know myself at the end of the day, like, and sure, maybe they portray you as a little bit over the top, but it's like, but that's what people like. That's why they watch these shows.
Yeah. That's why they casted you. They thought you had that extra thing that could put them over the edge.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's a role that they envision you living up to, and some people they step into it, and other people they hold back, and so then I think they just go, okay, fine. Like if we're going to capture the one that is stepping up and is ramping it up, because again, they only have 2 hours per episode to show, and they film 14 hours a day, and each episode's like 4 days of filming, so it's like
you can only fit so much,
whatever. There's 48 hours of filming, and it's like we can only fit 2 hours in. So I think it's partly for production, like to their defense, it's like they can only show so much. So they do, I mean, stuff that's not in there. It's like, well, because they're like, hey, this isn't deemed important. Is somebody really going to watch Clayton freestyle? Like, I thought it was funny and I thought it was a bro moment, but like, does it really add to anything?
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. And you can kind of gravitate towards that and be like, you know what? I understand the production side.
Yeah.
They have a job to do as much as we have a viewership to watch.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to see it.
Yeah, maybe they post a few more videos on their social.
Exactly,
At
right.
the very least.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Well, I want to ask you a question because pertaining to an issue that I've seen brought up on social media a few times, and then one that I also experienced with my time on The Bachelorette becoming The Bachelor. There seems to be a concern or issue with racial disparity on the show. As far as preferential treatment or more TV time for certain people versus others.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I was chosen as The Bachelor over 6 men of color.
Low key, I thought that was wild. Not that you personally, but the person that, because if I recall, you were like 5th or 6th? 8th?
Yeah, there was
That's
one
even way
other
more.
white dude that was still
See,
there.
look. When I saw that, I was not upset at you. I'm like, you and once again, I don't know Katie Thurston that well, but I know she was outside the top 10 and got picked to be the lead. If I said that correctly, I hope I
believe
did.
she was picked low, like lower, as in like
right?
where she ended up at.
I was like, that's because in the history, from what I've been told, you always kind of make it far. You make it top 3, top 4, and then people can like more connect with you along the season that you're on. If you, and just throwing Katie Thurston back out there, if you guys haven't had that much time to be in front of like, the audience, people kind of can like relate to you.
Yeah.
People aren't going to really want to tune into the season as much. So I thought when you were chosen, I was, oh, dope, Clayton, I liked him. However, I'm like, a lot of these other guys have more time spent. At least I thought maybe more time spent, with Michelle, more time spent, relating to them. And I'm like, I can see why they would pick these guys over Clayton, like the choice, but I thought there was better options for the amount of time they gotten while they were there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and again, you don't even have to like the choice.
Yeah.
I think the hard part was for me was I, accepted it because I was like, why would I not? You're asking me to be the Bachelor?
Let's send it.
So I'm like, absolutely. But then I was getting accused by people saying, you took this from them. And I'm like, that part I couldn't agree with. I was like, I didn't take it from them. I like this was given to me by the producers. Like, they
you didn't ask.
You could say, like, I just accepted it. And I think
yes, anybody would accept that. Yes.
But with that being said, like, do you think that there should be like a rule that somebody shouldn't come outside of the top 4? Or do you think that, let me ask you this. Do you think it's primarily on the, on the producers to have things play out fairly? Like the issue of racial disparity every year there's a discussion of there's not enough representation.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that whatsoever, but who do you think bears that responsibility? I mean, is this the producers need to bear the full brunt of this?
Not the full brunt. I'm gonna say casting producers. I throw them majority of it. And also it's not even fully on the casting producers if they're not even getting people that are interested of color wanting to be on that show. Yeah. So once I got off the show, I had people like some of my boys, and they're like, you know what, man, I would have loved to go on it. But before you went on it, I would never have watched it because no one looked like us on there, right? Yeah. I do think our season 16, was the first one, at least that I can really say, it felt like the first one, that there was a lot of people of color on it. Yeah. And I think it has a thing to do with Black Lives Matter happening on the same time. If I recall, Ivan was talking to Tayshia on one of their one-on-ones where he went to the George Floyd killing, like all that stuff was brought up on our season. Yeah. And I felt like the show that year and years moving forward did a great job capturing more of a collective audience and not just a specific niche. Because in the past, you might have had like 2 Black guys, 1 or 2 Hispanic guys, and then 1 or 2 guys in Asian descent, and then predominantly all white. And that's what their viewership was coming from. Yeah. And it still could be that. But having since then, you had the Matt James, you had so on and so forth of all the leads that might have been of color. And it's nice to see it. Yeah. And I think it's going in the right direction. I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and something I've heard, and I'm curious, there's no right or wrong answer in my opinion on this one, but as far as to satisfy the majority and minority audience, right? So for us to be able to get to a place where we can eradicate the discussion around racial disparity, because I think everybody ultimately wants that to not be a center focus, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, me personally, I would love to not race to never be brought up on the show.
Just go there and date.
It was hard for me to like, have to, not only like face that head on going into The Bachelor and already having that, at a disadvantage where it's like, okay, I'm the guy. Why was I so special? I'm getting all these DMs. Why do you think you're special over these men of color? And it's like, and I'm like, okay, so
it puts you in a situation. You had
and then even on the show, it's like, I love people of all ethnicities, right? So like girls, like I don't have a like general like, okay, like I'm only gonna date white women. I like I'm like if I vibe, I vibe.
Yeah.
But with that being said, like there certainly were points where like it's like, okay, hey, you can't like when like the people that are here, like you got to keep a certain, let's just say you got to keep a certain like number of people like to keep this even. It's like I shouldn't have to be focusing on the color of somebody's skin as far as who I keep around. It should just come down to like, who do I like and who do I not, right? But there's like always this focus on the back of like, and again, I think this is like, it's like, it's hard because again, I think like nobody wants that to be a topic of discussion of like, like this show is not catering to, it's like, okay, but how do we do this correctly? Like, how do we get this so that everybody can feel like this is fair? And that like everyone's being represented. So, I've heard both sides of it. One, they the side of the coin is, well, maybe every other bachelorette or bachelor is a person of color. So if you have a white bachelor, then the next person should be a black bachelor or an Asian bachelor. I get that,
but it shouldn't be forced. But I get that.
Or so is it one or is the cast, if there's 30 people or 15 white, individuals and the other 15 people of color, or do you go more by like the general like demographic of the United States, which I think like 14 or 15% of the population is African American.
Yeah, it's actually not as much as people could think it is. Yeah,
so do we cast based off of the overall demographic of the United States? I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I think that's tough. I think my thoughts behind this one is do what feels natural. So if somebody feels as if they should, now they can turn it down. They don't want the lead role. But if you are starting to capture an audience behind a select individual, no matter the race or whatever it is, that's who America wants to see.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that you're right or wrong choosing white, black, brown, Puerto Rican, Asian, all kinds of stuff. Choose what you want to choose. But if America wants to actually put the viewership numbers on them, it's like the NBA. If people are watching a certain team, they're going to be on primetime games. Yeah. If not, they're not going to fall to the wayside. Same thing with us. If you're seeing that, this person is getting, a lot of love. Let's, push them to the forefront. If they don't win this, if they don't become Mr. or Mrs. whoever, then, let's see if they want their own, lead role in this.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be based off that. But I do think this show has been doing a better job with trying to appeal to a larger demographic. I just know the bottom line is still there. They got to make money. It's still their job. It's still a network. You can only do so much. So if you got, certain states and certain regions of the country where people just turn off the TV if they see anybody who's not like them, who's not predominantly white on their screen, then that season might be a wash for the Bachelor franchise because they're not appealing to their main source of income.
Yeah.
Now the next season might be somebody who's white, for example, and everybody's right back on board. Then you can tell. Then you're like, okay, we have a discrepancy here that we got to figure out.
Yeah, yeah. And you just raised a really great point, which I want to highlight, and it's an observation that I've seen, and it's not some crazy observation other people have seen as well, but there's a cry for diversity, but yet when given diversity, the seasons don't perform as well.
Yeah.
If you look at the followers, so the leads that are people of color get half to maybe a quarter.
It's getting washed out.
So, I mean, and again, in my season, the final four women, the one that had the least in the final four amount of followers was Serene. And the other three women were white presenting. I think Gabby, I think she's mixed and if I remember correctly, but they were still white presenting.
Yeah.
And so it's a hard conversation. And I think partly it falls on the audience as well. It's like audience holding the other half of the audience accountable.
Yeah.
You're getting mad at the producers, but you're showing the producers that the second they choose a person of color, you're out.
It's not on the
because to your point, I totally agree with this. People relate to what they see on TV. And if they can't relate to that bachelorette or bachelor, they're less invested. And, relating can come down to, does this person look like me? Do they sound like me? Do they act like me? And this is what frustrates me is that, and it's such a hard topic to have. And I feel very comfortable having this conversation with you, but I've been really nervous in the past to even talk about race because being a white man, it's like if I say one thing that is perceived wrong, game over, I'm racist.
Yeah, people can call off edges. Yeah,
and I'm not. I'm like, I'm not racist.
Yeah.
Like I don't see color. I truly do not. Like I try not to, I really just want to see people for what they are. But like if I'm not careful and I say something that like makes sense in my head but comes out and said incorrectly, canceled, game over, you're done. Shove him and kick him in the corner. And anytime that I post something, it's like, he's the racist white guy, right? So it's such a hard topic. But with that being said, I'm like, I don't want to avoid it anymore. And I want to have these conversations, right? And so I do think that like, yes, audience, you need to start holding each other accountable on these forums, in your comments. Like, you need to be saying like, hey, be conscious of the fact that like, does the large majority of people really want this? Because if they did, then we would be seeing the same amount of followers for a white male as a black lead. Yeah. And we're not seeing that.
So then now that we have a Grant as a new bachelor, I'm very curious to see how his stack up, because I personally can't really put a lot into the Matt James stake, only because people kind of knew who he was. I mean, obviously he was not on the batch. He was supposed to actually be on my season, actually. Season 16, actually, like Meatball supposed to be on our season.
He was?
There's a few more people like throughout.
Meatball was delayed a few years then.
Yeah. So hey man, shout out Meatball.
Still made.
Yeah, right. And there's still a few other people that are supposed to be on our year that they just like, once COVID hit and once Claire was like, I don't want to see this like this age, demographic. I wanted more people that are older. And I was actually one of the youngest when I was picked. But one of the ones that are older, then a lot of those guys in future season, like Greg Grippo, same thing, our season. He's on, like, so stuff like that happens all the time. Yeah. But where was I going with this? At the end of the day, viewership is going to be its biggest point because that's what's going to pay the bills, right? So if you aren't casting people that the viewers want to see, you're not going to have a show in the first place. Yeah. So for us, we had, like I said, I thought we had a great amount of diversity on our cast, but I also noticed something very early on behind the scenes as we're starting to go through eliminations. And I had a running joke with all the dudes, like all my man of color on the show. I was telling them, I'm like, y'all know every week one black man is going to go home every week. And it sure enough was true. Yeah. And the thing is though, if somebody got eliminated earlier on in that week and they happen to be black, it was a sigh of relief to all other black folks on the show. And that's how sad, but also how factual it felt during that time. The producers maybe did nothing wrong. They probably didn't even tell Claire or Tasha who to pick, but how it was coming out was seeming very calculated and very trending towards one a week. And that's just how it goes. And viewership is going to reflect that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll just say this much. There's definitely awareness to how many people of color are here currently, and how many people of color are still in the top 10. And the producers are doing, I've actually come to their defense more so now than I ever have. Yeah. Because like, they're not monsters. People make them out to be like they are absolute monsters. Like, there's accountability that has to happen on both sides. There were certain things that like I took credit for that were really great, like that I took credit for, but then I was pissed off whenever I looked bad and I was like, F you guys. They're like, oh, but you want to take credit for all the good stuff. And I was like, well, yeah. They're like, did you think of that? Was that your idea? Or did we come up with it together? And I was like, that's a good point, right? But like my ego only wanted to be like, no, I'm only going to focus on the things that you like. You shouldn't have done that. And it's like, so I used to think they were monsters. I was like, F you guys, but I cried with them. I spent time with their families, and that's why I was so like caught off guard when I came off the show. I'm like, how you all stabbed me in the back, but then my brain was like, but I ate dinner with them. I traveled the world with them. I cried with them. I went out to dinner when the show was over with them. Like I spent time with them. So I was like,
it's a fine line.
It was weird. I'm like, but then like again, I remember like Matthew McConaughey's Greenlight's book, he says it's not personal, it's business. Yeah. And that's when it clicked. I was like, these people aren't monsters, but if they don't do it, somebody else will do it. And ultimately, like you go on the show and I don't like the whole you know what you signed up for, because nobody really does. You don't really know what you
There's
like.
a lot of papers to read.
Yeah, a lot of papers to read, and a lot of us go, I'm not reading a 70-page document, right?
Yeah.
And then, whenever it happens to you, you're like going back, I'm gonna sue these MFers.
Yeah,
like
right.
Going in there and it's like,
page
gosh,
34, section,
50, right there. It's
appendix.
if you do this, you're like, damn it. It's
like,
like,
that was a part of that. Huh?
but I signed it, and that's who's that on? Well, I'm not supposed. Who's gonna read 70 pages? Well, you should.
Yeah,
Or
have a lawyer do it for you, or
whose
something.
fault?
Yeah,
Right. And did you take the time to get a lawyer and all that?
Yeah.
So like again, I was mad, but when I went back and looked at that contract, to be like, and I was never going to sue ABC because that was going to no way.
You're not going to win that.
Their lawyers versus mine, they'll bleed me out so quick.
Yeah.
I found in the court system, like it costs a lot of money to go to court. So, but I looked at, don't get me wrong. I went back to the contract and I was like,
but
I'm about to get them on line 36. Nope. And everything that I saw that I was angry about was like in the contract. And I was like, well, I didn't hire a lawyer to review this. I just like signed it because I was like, oh, I'm a good dude. So like, that's the way I'll be portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't watch the show going in. I saw like a couple episodes. So I went in ignorant, and thought that I could go in there and just like everything.
See, a lot of guys do. I don't know if ladies do the same thing, but a lot of guys. So on our season, I personally was deemed as somebody who knew everything about The Bachelor. I did not. I really did not. I just knew stuff about Claire. Because that's the person we're going there for. Yeah. It's like if you're going on a date, you want to know about this person. You want to know about her background. I wanted to know what season she was on prior to this and why she was on The Bachelorette now. And why, what's his name, Juan Pablo, whatever his name, why he was like, I want to know that just because I have something that's in common, which is I want to connect with you. Yeah. But then when some of these guys were surprised they got eliminated. They're like, you get eliminated on the show? I'm like, how else do you find out who stayed? I was so confused. A lot of guys went in ignorant. They just went in, thought that this was a show, and every week somebody gets a rose, everybody stays, and it's la la la, happy roses and rainbows. I'm like, no, this is a show for love. You guys know that, right? They're like, yes, that's all they knew. They didn't know anything about Claire, anything about anything else, or Tayshia for that matter. So it's like you can't go into it blind. You got to read the contract, read these things, because you don't want to be caught off guard. And for me, I happen to know just enough that I was trying to help dudes out. I'm like, y'all, like, you might not want to pop your new expensive suit because you don't know what's going to happen. No, don't pop tags yet. Like stuff like that, small jokes, because guys just didn't get it. I'm like, you could return these outfits, by the way.
Or wear your best outfits out the gate. Because you don't know if you, and I've done that where it's like, put your best outfits on, because at least if you go out, you went out stylish. Yes. You don't want to hold like an outfit unless you're that confident. But I'm like, if I'm going to be here for 2 months,
you have no control over your destiny.
Then I'm sure I'll have like my, my best fit on night 60 or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was a conversation I remember having with guys who they're like, well, I gotta bring out my nicest fit because like things are looking a little rocky right now, right?
Yeah.
And again, at the end of the day, like when you're done, you're done. That's it.
Literally,
the show is quick.
Like when you're done, you go right to the airport. You leave. You're like, wow. Yeah. And then if you didn't get anybody's phone number, you got to try to DM. Say, yo, man, hope the time was good. Like, what's your phone number? Like, it feels so surreal. It feels like a giant dream. Yeah. From start to finish. And then when you're done, you're like, wow, back to normal life. Because it doesn't just air then. It airs like a month or two later. Yeah. So it's like back to your normal life. Yeah. And you're like, what did I do for the last month or 2 or 3? Yeah. Was I even coherent? Right.
Yeah. It does feel like a dream.
It does.
I agree with you. Just it does. Even watching it, you're like, wait, that's me. That's me on the screen. Watching like I'd see like the episodes pop up. I'm like, oh, that's me. Oh, I was the Bachelor.
I forgot that.
It's wild because I feel like your brain, I don't know why, I guess because it's just happening so quickly and you don't have time to process.
So for you, what was the timeline when you went from being on The Bachelorette to being The Bachelor, like far as like real time? Was that like 2 months of like downtime to going back on the show?
I was having talks days after I got sent home on The Bachelorette.
Sheesh, that's exhausting.
So I was already talking about being The Bachelor like days after I was sent home. Mm-hmm. And I was chosen as The Bachelor, I think a month and a half after I came off The Bachelorette. Mm-hmm. So like as in like filming The Bachelorette. Yeah. So by the time that like Michelle's season was airing, I was already almost done filming.
Okay, then so this goes to my other point then. Now the casting producers, if you really think about it, they really, or the producers in general, they have no clue how you're going to be perceived while you're on the show if they had no time for people to even watch you, to even relate to you. So they pick somebody that they think the audience may or may not like, and TV time might not even be a thought. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of sucks, and you kind of get like the short end of the stick because you don't even know how well you're going to be received on the previous season, but you're already filming season with new girls. Yeah. And the audience hasn't even seen your final story on the original show yet.
Yeah.
And now you're already filming a new one.
Yeah.
So you're kind of putting at a disadvantage because people probably coming at you sideways,
Yeah.
but they have no idea that you started filming this before the show was even done airing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
Well, and again, like, I'll just say I had a conversation with somebody where I was upset because I said, hey, like, everyone online is saying they don't know who I am. So why are you not showing more of me?
Yeah.
And on Michelle's season.
Yep.
And the comment was, there's a fine balance of showing you. We don't want to basically overshadow Michelle by showing more of you on her season because a Black woman season. And now there's a white lead on the season. If you start showing too much of me, now whose season is it? Like, and again, they'd have to show a lot to make it my like to overpower, but that was
it's understandable.
And I understand that.
I
And
can
so
get that.
I find myself coming more to the defense of the producers nowadays because I'm like, at first I was like, guys, we're not showing enough of me. I was like, but I get it. Because there's that fine line of what happens if you show too much of me on Michelle's season. Now you take away, the more minutes you give me, the less minutes you give of her and her journey. So now I'm potentially taking away from her show.
Yeah, now you have two seasons.
Experience. And now I might have two seasons, right? So like, I find myself more and more coming to the defense of the show because I'm like, it's hard. Like, and people need to understand that like these conversations are happening. So as people are screaming and saying this show is racist and this show needs better representation, it's like, trust me, these conversations were being had at all points. Yeah. And it was like, how do we do this without like, where's the balance? Yeah. And so, again, I put that out there just to like tell people like these conversations were always being had, and maybe it's just more open dialogue, right? Yeah. Like the show still wants it to be like, hey, a show that people can have fun with because they don't want to like orchestrate the entire thing. Because I get people, they go, well, is it real? And I'm like, it's real. Yeah. Like it's real. There were elements that maybe were drawn or were maybe like highlighted a bit more or like pushed to like make something more than what something was. But I say 80% of the time it was real. 20% of the time I might have had to fabricate a few things. Yeah. And so I'm like, but there's still a real element. I think that's where the show's like, we don't want to control this. And that's where this narrative is like, well, they made me do this. People come out against the show. They made me do this. And so then all of a sudden now there's people like, well, the show's not real because these people are forced to do these things. And I was like, that's not entirely true. Like, was I given certain like thing? Hey, Clayton, this would be fun if you did this. Absolutely. Yeah. But did they force me to do it? No. Yeah. No. There might have been a few times where like, Clayton, we would love for you to do this. And I was like, fine. Yeah. I like it's in that situation, real. It's not a big deal. Yeah. It's still real. You still gotta lead your own path. There is moments where producers may say, hey, come over here real quick. Hey, go over there real quick. Hey, sit down next to so-and-so real quick. Yeah. Or hey, like these things happen all the time just to kind of get you in the right environment for a conversation to start. Yeah. And that's kind of what, in my opinion, the producers do well at. Yeah. They just put you in a situation, put you in a room with your worst enemy and say, hey, Clayton, talk to so-and-so. And you like, I can't talk to this person about, but they're like, all right, but let's ask you a question. And then that's how it starts. Yeah. And they're great people. They just got to do a job. And I found that out on set. It was like one moment my producer, me and him have handshakes. The next moment my producer, not even looking at me because I'm going home that same week. Yep. And I'm like, oh, this is how the game's being played. Yeah. I got you. I got you. Yeah. But it's just business, man.
Yeah, it's all what it is. Yeah. You can't force it.
So, okay, reality television going on it's challenging. It's life-changing. It can bring out the best of us or the worst of us, but ultimately it definitely impacts our life to a great degree. Yeah. I feel that my experience personally on reality television was probably one of the hardest things that I had to go, to experience personally, not just for the filming of the show, but what transpired afterwards and the audience reception and all that. Do you feel that the show left that same type of impact on you, or is there a moment in your life you can recall that, was way more like harder for you, a darker moment? Like, is there something that comes to mind that you think like, man, like the show might've been tough, but it doesn't ever, it didn't relate to this moment in my life? Because again, this is a mental health podcast. And I do like to have these honest conversations about, hey, these rock bottom moments that people face. Like, did your rock bottom moment come on reality television or was it something else?
So I'll say let's say two rock bottom moments. One rock bottom moment on television, one rock bottom moment off of television in real life. The one that's on television, it was actually one of the first episodes. It might have been like episode, say 2, 3, whatever it was. We had our first group date, right? And it was the one, I'm not sure if you know about this one, but it was a strip dodgeball. That shit was trash.
Yeah.
Oh, but it was bad because how they had to play it up and make it very competitive, which it was. It was a fun game.
Yeah.
We got our asses whooped that day. It might have been best, or might have been the first one to 5 wins. We had no wins. They had 5. They had 5 wins.
Yeah.
But the teams, in my opinion, were stacked in their favor.
Okay.
If you have an ex-baseball player, ex-football player, ex-somebody else, and then their worst player that was of occupation for this kind of participation was a doctor. Cool.
Okay.
I named a bunch of professional athletes and a doctor.
Yeah.
We had, my occupation might have been best suited for it.
Okay.
Spin instructor.
Yeah.
You got a spin instructor, and then you had a few of us that just were happy to be there. And we got our asses whooped. Anyway, I say all that to say, every round you lose, you have to take off an article of clothing. That's not a big deal until you get to the last few articles of clothing. And at this point in time, the team across from us is fully clothed. And they're looking at us, and they're looking like, we don't want to keep playing this because we know like we are whooping you guys right now, and like you guys aren't having fun anymore. This is not a fair fight. And on top of that, like they're kind of putting this on you guys. So it got to the last moment, and then the very last, I want to say, somebody didn't catch a ball. It flies off. We lost. Now we have to take off our underwear. Right. And then the producers always say, hey, make sure you guys wear your jock strap. That's the last part. We wear it, we lose. I want to say it might have been Kenny or somebody took off their underwear first to be like, you know what? Embrace me. This is me, America. Do it. And I don't know if you know much about Kenny. Kenny, at that time, you know,
he was very body positive.
You know, just, you know, abs, and he eats like eggs and rice all day. He's like, here I am, right?
It's like my moment.
Yeah, my moment to shine. I was like, love Kenny. Shout out Kenny.
Clothes.
So he did that, and I'm like, I'm a man of the people. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna let you do this alone. Sure.
Oh, so you went for it too.
Unfortunately, God forbid, I did it anyway. I said, you know what? Let's just do it, because I'm like, there's no way they're gonna show this, and they didn't show a lot of it. Yeah. However, the part that really hit my rock bottom part was the walk of shame they made us do while being naked all the way back to our rooms. So it might have was like a half-mile walk. And so it's COVID. We're at a resort in Palm Springs, and we have to walk from like the racquetball tennis courts where everyone's going to be played at back to our living quarters, which might have been like a half-mile, maybe a 10-minute walk. It was a walk, right? So, and cameras are following with the flashlights on, just like looking at us. I feel like I was on Cops, right? They're looking at you, and they're trying to interview you while you're walking naked. And I was like, okay, this is pretty embarrassing now. Like it was at a point where it was embarrassing. I thought we can just go home and have our dignity. So I was like, okay, strike one. I'm embarrassed. I'm being interviewed while I'm walking. I'm naked. Cool. Yeah. All right. I lost. I'll eat that. We get back to our living space, and now we're back to the house. We get back to the house. Half the guys are now awake, and they're in the room being like interviewed already. And I'm like, this is odd. So mind you, it's late at night. We're coming back from, losing this group date. We get back there, and the guys just waiting for something. We can tell they're waiting on us to get back to the house. So it might be 7 or 8 guys already sitting there. We get back to the house, everybody starts laughing and going for it. And we're like, okay, we deserve it. We lost, whatever it is. So we think the night's over. So we sit on the couch. I got a pillow. I put it over me. And they're just asking us questions in like atypical fashion. We're answering it. And then they're like, okay, good. Like, all right, guys, that's a wrap. You guys are good to go. I'm all right. Perfect. Back to my room. I'm now naked for this point in time, maybe 20 minutes now. Have now been naked about 20 minutes in real time. Cool. Back to my room. I get up to try to go to my room and say, oh no, Demar, come over here. We got to do a second round of interviews. And I was like, more interviews, right? I'm like, what? Can I at least get a towel on now? And you can show my top half. It's now to a point where it gets getting too far. So now I'm outside doing another 20 minutes of interviews, right? And I'm still naked. It's now 40, 45 minutes.
And no jockstrap?
No, I'm actually naked. I'm just holding myself.
Oh, wow.
I have a pillow on me still. And I'm like, all right, guys, it's getting to a point now. Mind you, I'm a chill dude with a lot of things. But I'm like, it's getting kind of overblown. Can we just wrap this up? And I'm talking to the producer that's interviewing me, and I can see that he wasn't really trying to push questions on me because he knows I was not really feeling comfortable at this point in time. I can get the first part. I get the walk of shame. I get the initial set of interviews. Cool. Now let me get some clothes on. We can call it a day.
Yeah.
No, they were milking it. So now it's close to almost an hour of time of me being naked. And I'm like, I'm not answering no more questions. Like, can I get my clothes on? Like, this
Yeah.
is not starting to get ridiculous. Then I'm like, yeah, let's wrap it up. They can tell the tension is in the room.
Yeah.
And if you recall, Yosef, if you happen to remember that name at all, that's okay if you don't.
Yeah.
But that's the one that Claire and him got in an argument about. I am pretty sure Yosef was there that night amongst the guys that were sitting there waiting for us to return back to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he was so upset. I don't condone what Yosef did, but I do understand where it was coming from. Like, this show was disrespectful and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, chill. It's not that serious. And then he just saw like the look of defeat on all of our naked faces, right? So he's like, I almost stand up for you guys. And we're like, you weren't even on the date. Your date's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
But he took it up a notch. But anyway, so that was my rock bottom moment then.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know how it was going to be portrayed on TV. I'm thinking it was like a quick walk of shame and that was it.
Yeah.
I know it was going to be a full hour of me being naked on that behind the scenes stuff. And once again, I wasn't forced, to get naked. I was under the impression it was like, hey, it's a team game. Your team, this is the bet, this is the wager. You guys lost. Yeah. And one or two of our guys did it early. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to do it with you guys. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm a team player. Yeah. The stuff after that is the stuff that I had a problem with. Yeah. So anyways, there's that.
No, I understand that.
And now rock bottom part number 2, I would say it would probably be, I think I talked to you before we got on the air right now, that I've suffered a lot of loss in the family, like a lot of random losses. So all my family's born and raised in New Orleans, mom's side, dad's side. I was the only one that was born and raised in San Diego. Yeah. So I was always a California dude, hence the shirt, survive.
Yeah, but it's nice.
Thanks. But so family always grew up in New Orleans, it's a dangerous space to live in. So 2 losses. I am an only child, and I've always claimed to be an only child. But growing up, I always had half brothers. So my biological father, he had me, and then he also had twin sons, and they were almost a year younger than me, right? Mm-hmm. So every time I went back to New Orleans, we always hung out, had a good time, and that was growing up. So we're in New Orleans. During Hurricane Katrina, so 2005 range, right? One of the sons passes away. He gets shot by a gun that was laying on the floor because, during that time, people's houses are getting picked up, cars getting picked up. So I'm assuming this gun probably drifted from somebody's car or they got somebody threw it on the ground. But it was like a loose gun, and at that time, they might have been 9 years old, in that ballpark. Mind you, twin boys. Yeah. Them two and one of their friends just walking around the streets, just looking at the destruction, looking at the house. Oh my God, I remember that place. Wow, that's crazy. They see a gun on the floor. One of the friends, of the 3 of them, one of the friends picked up the gun, didn't check if it was empty or not, and just playing with it. Nothing's happening, and then he points it to one of the brothers and then shoots him. He dies immediately. The friend goes to jail, and now that twin brother has to now live life without having a brother. And
seeing it too.
Seeing it. That had to be the most traumatic part for both of them, the friend and the brother, because the friend, that's the friend from child, like from little age. So he wasn't trying to kill anybody. I know, and I don't know what his sentence was after that, but he goes to jail. The twin brother is now an only child in his own right, because I don't live, in New Orleans. So he's growing up doing his own thing. He gets caught up with the wrong people, and I graduated from ASU in 2016. So his birthday was in August that summer. So I'm at that time 22. He's still 21, turning 22. He dies right before his birthday. So right after my graduation, he's supposed to come out there for my graduation. Couldn't make it for whatever reason. Stayed back in New Orleans. Soon after that, one thing led to another. He also got shot and killed. So both of those twin brothers passed away before the age of 22. One died at 9, the other one died at 21. And it was just sad because that was the only form of siblings I almost could have had. The relationship was getting there. We were like working on it, me and the one that was existing until he got, killed. So I feel like we were working on a relationship to kind of better that and to do all that. Say, man, I want to come out to California. Never been to the West Coast. I've only been in Louisiana. I seen you doing so much. You're going to ASU. At that time, I just was signed my letter to go to Clemson for grad school. So you're about to go to Clemson. This is awesome. I got to come out and visit you. With all these plans. Yeah. And then when I got that phone call from my mom, was like, so-and-so passed away. And I was like, damn, I just talked to him 2 days ago about how he wanted to do this and that. But once again, I caught up in the wrong place, wrong time, and was in the car with somebody, and they shot him right in the head. So I was like, very graphic, very, very, very real. And I'm like, that's life sometimes. And so I now live my life in a way where I want to continue to do better, to get as much education as I can, I have a spin studio now here in Scottsdale, have a business, just have so much positivity exuding from my being that it covers the losses of the people that couldn't make it to where I made it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's admirable that you found that silver lining from a really, I mean, incredibly unfortunate series of events. It sounds like, I mean, what you just alluded to right there, that gave you a new lease on life, where you said, I want to be like, do you feel in a way that your courageous spirit and your high energy is your way of honoring them?
Yeah, definitely. I think because once I heard my second, half brother passed away, it kind of already ignited a flame that I already had, because my mom had a brain aneurysm when I was 4 years old. So she was in a coma for 6 months. So I have even more stories than just that. But that also fueled the fire that I already had kind of lit. It kind of put another match, put a little more gasoline on it. And I'm like, let me figure things out, because I think I have so much more that I could be doing, whether that's volunteering my time, whether that's being there for my family, or just starting a family of my own. Like, I need to start doing something. I need to start going and be more proactive. So for sure, that definitely lit a fire in me to exude more positivity, because my mom always preached to me, be positive, because that's one thing you can't control, is how you respond to things, So growing up, that instance definitely helped me be who I am today. Because without that, I would still be a positive person, but I feel like the direction of when I'm headed would still be so lackadaisical. Be like, oh, I'm living in la la land, right? Everything's good in my life. No, it's not. It's not. Yeah.
For somebody out there that might have just lost a loved one, you've been able to make amends with what occurred. What would you recommend or say, hey, for somebody that's in that position right now, what helped you claw your way out of that rock bottom moment? So you get the phone call.
Yeah.
I imagine there was, sadness, tears, maybe anger. Ultimately, how did you get through that time?
Music. Honestly, music, spinning, exercise was big for me in regards to making that now a career. But and kind of like talking out my thoughts a little bit, with my mom and how she was feeling too, because even though that wasn't her child that she birthed, she only had me, but that was still my biological father's children that we had a connection with. So talking it out with people that can understand both sides, listening to music, because I really view that music as therapy. And then, just getting out and like working out the actual body, because, when those endorphins kick in and all that stuff, it helps for that moment. It might not be a long-term thing that's going to be fixed through that, but it's like a Band-Aid that helps you understand that life is going to be okay after this day. You got to just find the silver lining and just, hey, keep pushing, keep it going, because you don't want to be stagnant. You don't want to be stuck on idle time, because idle time is not going to be great for the mind. Yeah. So you got to find a way to branch out, talk to people when you feel comfortable, of course, not doing it the same day. Do something that's, therapeutic for you. It can be, taking a walk around, hanging out with your dog, doing whatever it is. For me, it's music. And then just try to build something from there. And that's going to be a great foundation to start with. Because I always say rock bottom is a solid place to build from. It's a very sturdy foundation. Rock bottom is a very sturdy foundation for you to build up from. And you got to just pick which rock bottom feels the sturdiest and start going up from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even love that perspective of it's a sturdy foundation. It's like, because some people would say that they're at their wits' end, that they're as defeated as they can be, which rightfully people are when they face those initial rock bottom moments. But then to see it as like, hey, I can build a solid foundation from this. Like everything's been wiped out. So now I have this blank canvas that I can basically build up, and so and make this fortified. So if I do, experience it again, I don't fall down as far into the pit or feel as kicked into a corner.
Yeah.
So I love that belief, or that mindset of like, this is, a great place to build a sturdy foundation.
Yeah.
There's one other question I have, and this is just coming from a selfish place, because I've never all the loss I've experienced, I think the last grandparent I lost was at the age of 8. So I was still too young to really understand what was going on. And I had not really built a relationship that I could even remember that was deep enough with those individuals that I lost. So I'm curious, all the years later, does the pain ever go away? Or does it just minimize where it's always present, but it's just like it's never fully ever gone?
I don't think it's ever gone, and it definitely does not go away. At least speaking for myself, what pain does is kind of metabolizes into a way where I can turn into a positive. So, man, that person lived a full life. Or, man, that person definitely lived life with no regrets. Or, man, I can take something from that person's journey.
Yeah.
Because however they passed away, whether it's old age, sickness, health, whatever the case was, there still were some positive memories that you can latch on to and you can hold on to. And grandma would have been, loving to come to this event of mine, or she would have loved this, or he would have loved to see me be here now. And it's like, hey, I'm here. I know you're looking down on me like you're here. You're here as well. So I use it as a sense of, once again, fuel, because I know that I took a thing that I needed to see or needed to feel in that moment to get to where I am now. If I didn't feel that, who knows if I would have made the right decision down the road to be inspired by that, basically.
Yeah, perspective's everything.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for openly sharing that. And I think it's it'll absolutely help somebody out there, that's currently facing this or is trying to figure out, how do I overcome this?
Yeah.
And you've given some really, really great advice of ways to do so. So, Demar, this was an awesome conversation. I felt it was very vulnerable. I think there were, some topics that I hope that we'll continue to cover as a society and talk openly about.
I think we will.
And not shy away from. There's again, certain things that I try to learn as much as I can. I think going back on it, just touching on it, and I hope that I can, be more confident. But I on the topic of something like such as race, as a white man, I always am trying to better understand. And so thank you for giving me the ability to have this conversation today, because
of course
there was absolutely parts that even as I was saying things, that I'm like, I got to make sure I'm really, really safe with the way that I say this, as opposed to just letting it out and saying it and then going, okay, like there's that sense of caution, and I think we should have that when we're having discussions. But I would love there to be a day where it's like, people can speak freely and understand that it's not coming from a place of ill intent. I'm still guarded, and that might just be with my time as being the bachelor, and I was PR trained, where like I still catch myself giving robotic and very, very safe answers because I was trained.
Exactly.
I was programmed that. I had my friends, when I came off the show, they said, Clayton, stop giving us interview answers. Just be you. Like, where did the old you go? Like, these jokes, like you don't make them anymore. And I was like, damn, I've been programmed. Like I have been so, and I've had this fear instilled in me, partly by myself, of like, it only takes one comment. It only takes one picture or one post that you made to your friend back when you were 12 years old, calling him, a slur, that cancels you. I've watched people get canceled for saying something at 11 years old.
Yep.
Because they called their friend like a fag.
Yep.
And it's like that, saying that, boom, canceled.
Oh yeah. Back in like the 90s or 2000s, they were letting like the word fag, the word retard, all these words that are very, 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 very not good to say, taboo now to say.
Exactly.
Back then, they were letting those words fly.
Go.
Yeah.
And so then now all of a sudden there's a discussion of, well, was it ever right to say in the first place? No. But it was, should somebody be canceled for something that was acceptable back then, and be canceled now? I don't think so. I think that's where you let people say like, hey, like now that I see that this was wrong, it was wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the hard part is like, I mean, again, I think that it's just, that's why there's a sense of guardedness. I mean, did I have a private investigator combing and erasing every single thing that I said when I was a seventh grader? Absolutely. I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, you had
they
found I think 85 instances of me calling one of my friends a fag.
Yeah.
And they go, hey, we found these 85 instances, and his name's Eric. Is this a friend of yours? I was like, yeah, that was my best friend. And so, but that was the thing, is like, they had to do that.
Especially on social media. So like, we all got vetted through, to an extent through social media. So for me, similar instance, I can't remember what my words are. Oh no, actually, I used to say, I'm not gonna say on your podcast, the N-word a lot, right? I was saying it because like publicly, I was saying it because, I'm a black man. I was just saying it.
Yeah.
So a funny instance, in my opinion, was when not one of the producers, but whatever like the agent was who vets your social media, is, hey, Demar, so I can't necessarily say you need to take these words down because this is your life, but just know it may be more professional to take these words down. I'm like, sure, I'm not tied to these words. This is from years ago when that's how I used to speak and talk to my friends in a public forum, which you would never do now. Yeah. I was saying, N-word this, N-word that sometimes. And I get it. And it's not good to say that.
No, but also again, it's all about, the perspective and the perception matters. And the intent. Yeah. The intent is what's most important. When I said this, was I saying this to tear somebody down? No. Mm-hmm. I was actually using that word in an endearing, weird, twisted way, because that's what 7th graders used to say. And it was like, I would call my friends that because that's what we would say, right? Yeah. There was no ill intent there. So I think that's where, again, the overlying message is it's important to understand the intent. It's important to understand the intent before you go and perceive something that somebody has said or done. Yeah. And that's where I hate that our society does not do that. They jump to conclusions, they jump to a headline, and they judge people before all the facts are out. Yeah. And it's like that person, give them the chance to at least share
defend
where
themselves
that was coming from.
If they're able to do that.
And if they say, I said that because it was a derogatory term, then okay, go after and attack them. Right?
That's different.
But like our society is so backwards right now where it's like, he said this, cancel him. And it's like, he was 11. Like we gotta
when
stop
you were a
with
kid,
this,
what
right?
did you say? Yeah.
Like we gotta give people grace, and we gotta be willing to have these discussions and say, why did you say that? Well, this is why I said it. Have I used that word since ever? No, I haven't. Since 12 years old. Like I don't think I've ever said that since, like, or maybe I was joking and I've said it to my brothers before, but with no ill intent. Right. And this is where you get to the whole like locker room discussion, just talk. And it's like the stuff that we said when I was on the football team in the locker rooms. Oh my gosh. Like that stuff could never be repeated.
Question. Like when you were in school in Missouri, was Michael Sam there or no?
He was.
Yeah. See, so you were probably dealing with that. I mean, not saying was he openly.
I knew at that time,
or everybody knew. So I don't know how it
I knew right
a while
away.
ago.
Like, it was like people knew, but he came out 3 years later after I was on the team officially. And then what was really interesting was he comes out and everyone just goes,
yeah, like we're cool with it.
All right.
Yeah, it wasn't even a big deal.
I think that's
the media made a big deal. Yeah,
was like the media made this massive deal, but I was like, you got a bunch of like football players that are like hyper masculine, almost maybe sometimes toxic masculine, like alpha males. Yeah, and yet it all comes out and everyone embraced him. Like, because he was funny, he didn't push it on anybody. Like he kept that stuff behind closed doors. That was his personal life. And people were like, yo, like when he shows up, he's funny. He's a great team player. Yeah. And I'll never forget, we had one guy one time call him a fag. Well, man, he knocked him so quick. Popped him.
He's not a small dude.
And that was it. And everyone was like, all right, don't ever say that again, right? And so, again, but like he never pushed it on people and no one had a problem with it. And actually, in a way, I was like, I thought it was so cool that whenever it came out, everyone was like, oh, how long did you guys know? And we're like, we knew for years.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
It doesn't define him as a person. Or maybe like that, sure, like that he prefers men. Okay, and what? We're here to play football game, and like at the end of the day, man, he's a cool dude, and I'm just happy with like knowing him for what he is.
Yeah, like that didn't negate the practices we had to spend, the meetings we had to spend, the classes that we had to take with, it didn't negate all the work that he had to put in to even get to that level of competition. Yeah. Him just saying he identifies as X, Y, and Z, who cares? That's one thing in your life that, that we embrace as well. It's not a big deal. Yeah. Oh, also another thing I wanted to say is like something that me and my girlfriend does that when it comes down to how to approach a topic that we want to talk about. We don't know how to discuss with one another. Like it'd be like some hard, like, hey, it's how I've been feeling. We always say, hey, just give it to me whatever's coming to your mind. We won't talk during that moment. You just say what's on your mind and then you go back and try to kind of clean things up. Yeah. So, cause it's better to start talking somewhere than hold it in when you're in a relationship and be like, well, I want to talk to you about a certain thing. I just don't know how to say it. And it's fine. It's fine. Like we welcome a safe space for you just to say it. Yeah. We're not going to judge on how you say it because we know it's hard to even say it in the first place. But now you backtrack, clean it up as you see fit, and we're going to take it for that value of the cleanup part. But we do want you to say it, get off your chest. Because when you do that, it gets easier to clean it up rather than you like write things down, write it out, try to say it. I'm like, no, just in the moment. If you're mad, talk to me. Yeah. Talk like be raw. Let's talk about it. And then let's go back and clean up and address every line for line on where we need to, to change some things. Yeah.
That's mature, man. Giving people permission to be raw and real, knowing that their intentions are often pure. But okay, so say it how you feel it.
Yep.
And let me then see if I can understand it.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm not going to assume just because you say something that triggers me that you're trying to trigger me or you're trying to demean me. No, I know that I'm looking at you as a human. We have a lot of love, or we have a lot of camaraderie. We have a great friendship. So give it to me in the way that like it makes sense in your head.
Yes.
And then I can tell you, hey, that's not the best approach, and here's why.
Yes.
Right. Or this is the way that it makes me feel. And ultimately that person can go, okay, I choose to either accept that it makes you feel this way and I won't say it again, or I'm going to continue to say it because that's the way I feel. Right. But like, that's where there's the maturity of having the back and forth. Right. As opposed, and that's what we need. It's just conscientious back and forth, mature conversations, understanding that this, okay, is this person coming from a pure place? If they are, and something comes out that way, let's not just like grab the pitchforks and try to, try to hang them up to dry, hang them out to dry. It's like, let's actually try to understand.
Yeah. See, it's tough when you deal with a mass amount of people. And that's why we do media training, because we have to appeal to the mass persona. Because if you talk and you're raw and unedited and you say, hey, y'all, this is how I feel, now let's backtrack, people are going to say, oh, nope, don't like you anymore. You said X, Y, and Z. I don't like these words. I don't like how it came out of your mouth. So it's a way to find a fine line between that, knowing your audience, knowing how to talk about it. And I listen to Transformation Church. It's on like podcasts and all kind of stuff. Pastor Michael Todd says, I want to be hot, humble, open, and transparent. As long as I'm humble, open, and transparent, as a pastor, I can come to you and just talk to you. And you see that I am obviously raw and I might not be perfect because I'm a human being, but I'm going to strive to correct my mistakes as I hear about them, as I know about them. Because if I can't be open with you, I can't be open with anybody. And so same thing for me and my girlfriend, same thing for me and the people that I teach every day. As, hey, I'm here to be open with you guys, and I'm humble enough to admit it that I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm transparent enough to know that we can all grow through this together. It's not just me telling that you need to grow. No, you that we need to grow. We help each other grow. So you need to know those things.
And finding the balance. And that's
exactly.
That's where it's at. So
Demar,
well, thank you so much. Today was an awesome conversation. I'm really grateful to have you come in here and talk with me. For those that want to continue to follow your journey, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you go on my Instagram. It's just at Demar Jackson. So at my name, DemarJackson. And then I have a spin studio out here in Arizona, Scottsdale to be exact. It's called Nyx, so NYX Cycle. Same thing on Instagram, Nyx Cycle. There you go. Besides that, TikTok, same thing. I'm on there. I think that one's at DJ from SoCal. I haven't had my full name on there just yet. Somebody has my handle. So whoever it is, give it back.
They're waiting on the right price.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys just stick them out, man. I had someone that bought ClaytonEckerd.com, and
really?
I put Clayton.Eckerd.com, and I wrote them out. Or I put ClaytonREckerd.com. And they held that site for a year and a half, and then they gave up and I bought it. Or I took it from them. So I beat them out. I was like, they held that. I was like, you ain't getting my money.
You gotta wait it out, man. You gotta wait it out. But yeah, that's the biggest thing is my spin studio. It's my little baby right now, Nyx, NYX. And then, my personal Instagram at Demar Jackson. So yeah.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna keep following your journey and hope that we get a second rendition of Mocha Latte when that.
Yeah, you know what? I need to make a song like that from my current girlfriend. I can't be talking about Tasha too much. No, I got you. Once I get these vocal cords all warmed up, we be all right.
All right, we'll all be waiting. So,
much love, man. Much love.